Masechet Baba Mesia Daf Chaf Tet. The Mishnah talked about if someone finds an animal, it's a loser animal, it eats more than it produces, then the finder should not keep it around for long because its value will diminish and diminish, and then eventually when the claimant comes, he'll say, listen, here's your animal, but you have to pay me, right, all this amount that I had to feed it. And therefore, the finder of a loser animal, after a certain amount of time, should sell it, and that money will be kept for the claimant. When he comes, he'll say, listen, I had to sell your animal because it eats too much, but here is the money, the price of that's the value of what you lost. Good. Now the Mishnah asked, Ma yeheh bedamim? What should you do with the money? Are you allowed to use it or not? Rabbi Tarfon says yes, the finder can use the money. He can buy and sell and lend it, whatever he wants. He could do business with it. And Rabbi Akiva said not. Therefore, Rabbi Tarfon says, since you're allowed to use the money, you are liable in case it gets lost or stolen. In other words, it seems like, according to Rabbi Tarfon, since you can use it, you're considered, we'll see, the discussion today, is that like a shomer sachar or like a shoel, like a borrower, and therefore one would be liable. How about even for honest? We're going to talk about today. Rabbi Akiva, however, says you cannot use the money. This belongs to someone else. You found it. It's his. So you have to put it away. But therefore, you're considered like, according to simple understanding, like a shomer chinam. You're not getting paid for it. You're a finder. You're not getting paid for finding it. And therefore put it away. But since you cannot use it and you're not getting paid to watch it, therefore if it gets lost or stolen, as long as you're not negligent, you are not liable. That's what the Mishnah said. Now the Gemara is going to comment. Ad kan la pelige ela kishenishtamesh behen, aval lo nishtamesh behen im avdu patur. That this machloket is only if you used it. That's where Rabbi Tarfon says you used it. Oh, now you got benefit from it. Now you're liable. But if he didn't use it, even though according to Rabbi Tarfon he can use it, but he didn't. He said, I don't want to use it. It belongs to someone else. You know what? I'm going to put it away. I want to make sure I have it for safekeeping there. So if you didn't use it and it got lost, patur. In other words, Rabbi Tarfon would agree with Rabbi Akiva. If you didn't actually use it, you'd be considered like a shomer chinam. Okay. If you accept this interpretation here that we just said, and we do accept it, then this will be a challenge to Rav Yosef. Ditmar. Shomer aveda. Rabba amar ke shomer chinam. Rav Yosef amar ke shomer sachar. Because we have a machloket. If someone is watching and lost item, you found an item, let's say it's the item itself, right? You found someone's glasses, and now you're holding on to it, and what kind of shomer is that considered? Rabbah says, it's shomer chinam. He's not getting paid for it. So therefore, if they should get lost or stolen, then the finder is not responsible. Okay, according to Rabbah, everything we just said makes sense. Shomer chinam, not responsible for geneva aveda. But according to Rav Yosef, who says a finder is like a shomer sachar. Now, even though he's not getting paid, he cannot demand any payment from the claimant when the claimant comes. But Rav Yosef says still we consider it like a shomer sachar for the sachar of the mitzvah. He's not just someone doing a favor. He is commanded to go and watch this item. So because he's commanded, so that gives him a higher level of responsibility. Right? We could call it the sachar of the mitzvah that you're getting, that you're fulfilling a mitzvah. It's an opportunity. You get to fulfill a mitzvah. And therefore, he is like a shomer sachar. And this brings us to our question. When Rav Yosef says that someone who finds an item is like a shomer sachar, he means that across the board, even if he's not using it, he's not allowed. If he finds something, he can't just use the guy's item. And so, even if he's not using it, still he's liable in geneva and aveda like a shomer sachar. Therefore, we have a question. According to Rav Yosef, if the finder sells the animal and has the money and doesn't use it, we just said that everyone would agree that he's patur in geneva aveda because he didn't use it. But according to Rav Yosef, even if he doesn't use it, he's shomer sachar and should be liable. And so therefore, that's the question on Rav Yosef. Why is he say shomer sachar? And we just said that all the Tanaim, Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva, would agree that if you don't use it, you're patur in geneva v'aveda like a shomer chinam, not like a shomer sachar. Amar lach Rav Yosef, b'geneva v'aveda dekula amala pligid dehayav, ki pligid be'onasin deshoel. Rav Yosef says, in fact, both Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva, they agree that it's at least a shomer is at least a shomer sachar, even if he doesn't use that money, and therefore he is liable in geneva and aveda. Right? Everyone agrees chayav. In the Mishnah, when they were arguing, when they said, does he have to pay or not, that was talking about does he have to pay in the case of onis as a shoel. Here's the three levels. Shomer chinam only has to pay if he's negligent, but otherwise geneva aveda, if he's not negligent, patur. A shomer sachar is one level higher. He has to pay for geneva v'aveda, but if it's honest, something out of his control, right? Natural disaster, or as we're going to see, if it's stolen by armed thugs, where it's out of his control, nothing he could have done, then shomer sachar is patur. Whereas shoel, even if it's something that's beyond his control, because the shoel is using the item, is getting that benefit, he is liable even in the case of onis. So that is the machloket between Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva. They all agree with Rav Yosef that yes, he's a shomer sachar. He's, even if he doesn't use the money, even if he can't use the money, like Rabbi Akiva says, still if it gets lost or stolen, he still has the benefit of a mitzvah. That's Rav Yosef's theory. Even if you're not getting paid, the benefit of doing the mitzvah makes you a shomer sachar. The only question is, what about ones? Rabbi Tarfon savar sharu lerabanan lishtamush begavai v'hava le'shoel elavaihu. Rabbi Tarfon says the finder is allowed to use the money. That he sold the goat and he bought and he has the money. Since he can make use of the money, that's a shoel, and therefore he is liable in onis. Rabbi Akiva savar lo sharu lerabanan lishtamush begavai hilkach lahave shoel el alayhu. Rabbi Akiva said he's not allowed to use it. He's not like a shoel. He still has, according to Rav Yosef, benefit of a mitzvah. So shomer sachar, he's chayav in geneva ve'aveda, but since he cannot use it, he's not a shoel, and therefore he's patur be'ones. Good. Okay, let's try to test out Rav Yosef's reading. Does it fit smoothly in the wording of the Mishnah? But why would you need the word lefichach in his words? He said, Rabbi Akiva says, since you can't use it, therefore patur. Iamat bishlama begeneva v'avadahu de pelige hainu de katan Rabbi Akiva omer lo yishtamesh behen lefichach im abdu eno chaya ba'achariyutan sagata dechamina shomer sachar have ked Rav Yosef ubegeneva v'aveda michayev kamash malan lefichach hashta de'amart lo yishtamesh behen shomer sachar lahave ve'la michayev begeneva v'aveda. If you say that the machloket in the Mishnah is about a case of being lost or stolen, which is how we interpreted it originally when we went in, a simple reading of the Mishnah was precisely that: is it shomer sachar or shomer chinam? Then we can understand the word lefichach, that Rabbi Akiva has to say lefichach because he's adding another logical step as follows. Rabbi Akiva says you cannot use that, the finder cannot use that money. And therefore, if it gets lost, notice this is lost. We're going to get to that in a couple of minutes. If it gets lost, he is not liable to replace that money. Why? Because you might have thought that he is like a shomer sachar, as Rav Yosef said. Rav Yosef says the sachar of a mitzvah. You're obligated to do it. That itself is like a monetary reward, and therefore that makes you more liable. And so I might have thought that geneva veda it would be chayav, and that's why he says the fichach tells me first he cannot use it, so for sure he's not a shoel, and the fichach is saying, and furthermore, not only is he not a shoel, since he can't use it, I disagree with Rav Yosef. There's no sachar mitzvah here, and he's not considered a shomer sachar, and he's not liable in geneva v'aveda. So I need that extra step of lefichach to tell me not only is he not a shoel, I think Rabbi Akiva says since he cannot use it, he's not even a shomer sachar, he's only a shomer chinam. That reads smoothly. But if you interpret as Rav Yosef just tried to, and said that even Rabbi Akiva thinks that one is liable in Geneva Aveda and is really like a Shomer Sachar, then ki pligi be'onasin de shoel, and the only argument is if he's a shoel or not. My lefichach to Rabbi Akiva. What do you need the lefichach for? It should have said as follows: Rabbi Akiva omer lo yishtamesh behen. Period. Rabbi Akiva should have just said, I think that you cannot use it. Now, if you cannot use it, ana yadana dechevan de lo yishtamesh behen lav shoel haveh. Everybody would know. You don't even have to spell it out. You don't even have to say lefichach. Lefichach implies an extra logical step. But here, it's already assumed. If you cannot use it, then obviously you're not going to be considered a shoel. Ve'eno chaya ba'achriyutan, and you would not be liable for ones. Lefichach Rabbi Akiva lamali. Why would he have to say lefichach? Right? Because lefichach is not adding anything new. All he has to say is you can't use it. For sure, it's obvious. You don't have to spell it out that he is not a shoel and would not be liable in ones, and just stop there, right? And I would know on my own that he's not liable for an ones, and he is liable for geneva va'aveda. You only have to say lefichach if you want to go an extra step and say it's prohibited in geneva va'aveda, and he disagrees with the logic of Rav Yosef that sachar of a mitzvah is considered something substantive. Okay, so that's the question, and we answer. Mishum lefichach Rabbi Tarfon. You're right. Rabbi Akiva did not need to say the word lefichach. It was obvious, but it's only there in the statement of Rabbi Akiva for parallelism in the statement of Rabbi Tarfon. Lefichach Rabbi Tarfon lamali. And now, why does Rabbi Tarfon need to say lefichach? What's his logical step that he is deriving from the fact that you can use it? Hachika amar kevan deshar leRabbanan nashtimushe begavayhu keman deishtamesh begavayhu dameh vechaya ba'acharayutan. He's saying as follows: since the rabbi said that you're allowed to use the money, it's as if you used it, and therefore you are liable. Right? Just the fact that you're permitted to use it, that already makes you like a shoel, because you can use it like a shoel. If I lend you something to use, whether you actually use it or not, doesn't matter. You're still a shoel, and therefore he is liable. Okay, now question. This whole time, Rav Yosef is saying the machloket is only in the case of ones, not if it's lost or stolen. But the language of the Mishnah says, therefore, if it's lost, Rabbi Akiva says you don't have to pay. Rabbi Tarfon says you have to pay. So the Mishnah said it's talking about a case of geneva va'aveda. Doesn't say it's talking about ones. So that's really difficult to fit in. And we have an answer. Kid Rabba, Damar Rabba, Nignebu belistim mezuyan, Abdu shetab'a sefinato bayam. Rabba says there is a case of geneva that is ones. That would be if it's stolen by armed bandits. You couldn't have done anything. You can't fight them off. You can't run away. You can't hide it. And so that's a case of ones. And also lost. A normal case of lost is, I was responsible. I put it in the spot. I don't know where it is. It's lost. Okay, then a shomer sachar is liable. But a case of ones is, it got lost at sea. A ship sank at sea. There's nothing I could have done. Right now it's lost somewhere down on the bottom of the ocean. That's considered ones, where a shomer sachar would not be liable, but a shoel would be liable. And so therefore Rav Yosef is assuming that that's the case that the Mishnah is talking about when it says that it was lost in a way of ones. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shemuel, halacha k'Rabbi Tarfon. Shemuel says the law is like Rabbi Tarfon, that a finder can use the money. Now we have a story. Rechava was a student of Rav Yehuda, so presumably he would want to follow Rav Yehuda, who said this halacha in the name of Shemuel. He was holding on to money that belonged to orphans. He's a custodian holding on to their money until they would grow up, and he's responsible for it. And now he wanted to know, can he use the money in the meantime? These kids are, 10, and so he's going to wait. He has to wait till they turn of age, till they become 13. In the meantime, can he make use of the money? He's like a shomer, right? He's like a finder, in a way. Atale Rav Yosef, Amar le, mahu lishtashumeh begavayu. So he asked Rav Yosef, can I use the money? Amar le, hachi amar Rav Yehuda, amar Shemuel, halacha kedebi tarfon. He says, yes, you can, because Rav Yehuda said, name of Shemuel, halacha is like a bitarfon, that a finder, this, right, the case we just talked about, where you find an animal and you sell it and you have the money, you can use that money, and according to the bitarfon, and therefore your case should be the same thing. You're holding on to money for orphans. They can't use it right now. They will claim it when they become adults. So he considered the cases to be the same, and he ruled that it should be permitted. אמר אביי, ולאו התמרה לה, אמר רבי חלבו, אמר רב הונא, לא שנו אלא בדמי אבדה, הואיל וטרח בה, אבל מאוד אבדה, דלה טרח בהו לה. However, Abaye objected, because Rabbi Chelbo said, name of Rav Huna, that is true. When did Shemuel say halacha z'rbi tarfon? Only in a case of money that one got in exchange for an animal that he found. Because in that case, the finder had to put work into it. He had to go and get this animal and bring it home. He had to see, does it work more or does it eat more? He decides to eat more. He has to take it to the marketplace. He has to evaluate it, sell it, get the money. So because he has to do all that work, he is allowed to use the money according to the bitarfon. However, if it's found money, let's say a finder just finds coins by themselves, and he doesn't have to do anything, he doesn't have to go to the market and buy it and sell it or anything, then he cannot use it. You cannot use an item itself or even money itself. And therefore, the case of orphans, you didn't work to get this money for the orphans. You just, right, the father died, and you were appointed as custodian, and so this is the same as finding money, not like selling an animal for money. Right? The money of the orphans is like found money, not like some found animal that you sold for money. And therefore, Rav Yosef told Rechava, sorry, you have to go. I cannot help you, even though I personally think it should be permitted, because I think the cases are similar. But my colleagues have disagreed and told me that the cases are not similar, and therefore I'm not going to go against my colleagues. And the answer is no, you cannot use the money. משנה מסע ספרים קורא בהן 1 ל-30 יום, ואם אינו יודע לקרות גוללן, אבל לא ילמד בהן בתחילה ולא יקרא אחר עמו. If someone finds a scroll, then the finder should take care of it properly by reading it once every 30 days. In other words, you're not allowed to use an item that you find. You have to leave it for the claimant to come. However, in the case of a scroll, if you just leave it as is and don't touch it, then it's actually bad for it. It's good for the parchment to be opened up. Not so often, because then it'll ruin, but once every 30 days, it's very good for it. Now, if a person doesn't know how to read, well, then he's not going to be able to open up to read it, but at least roll it, right? Roll it from beginning to end, and therefore the parchment will stay nice and soft. But a person should not learn something for the first time, because in that case, since you never learned it before, you're going to be opening it for a long time, spending a long time to try to figure out what the text means. And that's exposing it to light and using it too much. And also, two people should not read it together, because they're both looking on, and one is pulling it this way, the other pulling it that way, and that will cause it to tear or weaken. So therefore, use it for itself. In modern times, when you have musical instruments, for example, if you keep them in storage, it's no good for them, right? They will go bad. Musical instruments have to be played every so often. And so there actually is a job for professional musicians to go and play very high-end special violins and cellos that are in museums that are worth millions of dollars. You can't just leave them there. The people come and they play them every few days. You have to play them for a few minutes, get them to vibrate, and that way they actually stay good. It's necessary for them to use them a little bit. מסע כסות מנערה אחד ל30 יום, ושותחה לסורקה, אבל לא לכבודו. Similarly, if one finds a garment, then the finder should shake it out once every 30 days, and spread it out. For its sake, right? Spread it out, get the dust out, so it doesn't decay. So you can do it for the benefit of the garment, but not for your own benefit. If you're having company over and you want to put out these fancy cloths to show off to your guests, that's not valid. This is an item you found. You have to keep it safe for the claimant, but you do want to air it out as necessary. Silver vessels or copper vessels, one should use them for their benefit. Don't just leave them in the closet. They get all dusty and rusted. Take them out and air them out, move them around, use them, dust them off. But so use them for that in a way that will benefit them, but don't use them so much that it will cause them to erode. However, gold vessels and glass vessels, these are very delicate, and any use of them is going to be negative. Just put them away in a closet and don't touch them until Eliyahu comes and identifies the owner, or until the owner should come. Any use of them is bad. This is a separate halacha, different reason than from the other ones. If someone sees a sack or a basket in the street, or any item that it's not up to his dignity to carry, right? If a person normally goes and carries heavy things, he's a mover, or he's normally carrying big backpacks, and he finds a big backpack and he's going to carry it, then he should see it. If he sees it, he should take it, carry it home, and find the person who lost it. However, if it's a person who is elderly or distinguished and does not carry big things, he's not pushing wheelbarrows all day long, and it would be weird for him, beneath his dignity, to be pushing a wheelbarrow or a hand truck with big boxes on it. Since it's not his way to do that, he can leave it there, and someone else can come and take for it. That's beyond the level of responsibility that a finder needs to take upon himself. Amar Shemuel, Hamoseh tefillin bashuk, sham demehen umanichan le'altar. Now Shemuel has a halacha that if someone finds tefillin in the marketplace, then he should not just put it away and just wait till someone comes, but rather he's permitted to assess their value, and he can and take it for himself, kind of buy it, and he can put them on, and the money he leaves aside for the owner. Tefillin also, you want them to have use, and if you just put them away, they're going to go bad. So you know what? Better to leave the money on the side for the person to buy a new pair should he come around. Mativ Ravina, Masa Seferim Kore Behen Echad L'Shim Yom, Ve'emne Eno Yodeh Likrot Golelan. Golelan in, Sham Demehen Manichan La. We have a contradiction against Shemuel. Ravina brought a contradiction from our Mishnah, that if someone finds a scroll, then you should read it once every 30 days. If you don't know how to read it, at least roll it. We infer from here that, yes, rolling is permitted, but assessing the value and leaving the money on the side and then keeping the item for oneself, that is not permitted. So how come for tefillin you said, yeah, you can assess it and buy it, but for scrolls, does not say that in the Mishnah. Amar Abaye, tefillin bad habu mashkach shechiche, sefarim la shechiche. The difference, Abaye explains, is that tefillin, there's plenty of. There's this house of Bad Habu. They were tefillin manufacturers and lived in Mehoza, and they made plenty of tefillin, and the market, anywhere you go, you could buy a nice new pair of tefillin, and therefore, if you find tefillin, then better to take it for yourself if you want it, and leave the money, and then if the claimant should come, he'll take the money, and easily he'll find another equivalent pair of tefillin. Whereas scrolls are not so available. Torah scrolls of books of Tanakh, these are hard to come by, and therefore if the finder buys it and keeps it for himself and gives the money, okay, great, he has the money, but now he's going to have to go find a scribe, find a scroll, not so easy to find, and therefore better to leave the scroll on the side and let the claimant come and take the scroll itself. Tenor Banan, Hashoel Sefer Torah Mechavero Hareh Zeh Lo Yash'ilenu Le'acher. פותחו וקורא בו בלבד שלא ילמוד בו בתחילה ולא יקרא אחר עמו. Now this Baraita is going to talk about cases not of a finder, but other cases. The first one is someone who borrows a scroll. I'm borrowing your scroll, meaning because I want to use it. I want to read from it. So, if someone borrows a Sefer Torah from his friend, then he should not lend it out to someone else. No subleasing, right? That means the owner of the scroll trusted this person, but doesn't necessarily trust someone else to be very careful with it. Okay, and the person who borrows it is certainly allowed to open it and read it. That's what he borrowed it for. But he still may not learn something for the first time in it, because then he's going to be overusing it to, you can sit on one perek for hours and hours, many days, if you're learning it for the first time, and that will erode the scroll too much. Also, two people should not learn it together. I borrowed it for my own use. Two people are going to be pulling it each in each direction and weakening the scroll. וכן המפקיד ספר תורה אצל חברו גודלו כל 12 חודש פותחו וקורא בו אם בשבילו פתחו אסור. Second case is a deposit, right? Owner of a scroll says, I'm going away, can you hold on to this for me as a shomer chinam, shomer sachar. So now a shomer cannot use an item, he's only holding it, keeping it safe. But this one is more like a finder. In that if he has a Sefer Torah to safeguard for his friend, then he should roll it once every 12 months. He can open it and read it, but not for himself. He can open up and read it once every 12 months. He can either roll it or read it, like we said in our Mishnah, for the benefit of the scroll, but not for one's own benefit, right? Then that's, you have to look up a pasuk. No, you can't use this Sefer Torah. Sumchus omer b'chadash 30 יום, בישן 12 חודש. רבי אליעזר בן יעקב אומר, אחד זה ואחד זה 12 חודש. Simchus says, if it's a new Torah scroll, you should open it up every 30 days. When it's new, it's stiffer and you want to get more use out of it, so every 30 days. But if it's old, then already it's been used, it's loose, but still just once a year you want to use it so that it doesn't get ruined. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, however, says whether it's new or old doesn't matter, once every 12 months. The Gemara will ask, what's the difference between Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov and Tanakama, who also says once every 12 months? Amar Mor. That's the end of the Braita. Let's analyze each section. השואל ספר תורה מחברו הרי זה לא ישאילנו לאחר. If you borrow a scroll, you can't lend it out to someone else in turn. מה ידיע ספר תורה אפילו כל מילי נמה? דאמר רבי שמעון בן לקיש, כאן שנה רבי, אין השואל רשאי להשאיל ואין הסוחר רשאי להשכיר. Why does the Braita state this law only regarding a Sefer Torah? It's true for all matters. After all, Resh Lakish said that here in our Mishnah, referring to a Mishnah Masechet Gitin, is where to be taught that a borrower cannot lend out to someone else, nor can a renter who pays, as opposed to a borrower who doesn't pay. A renter pays for the right to use it. He is not allowed to then rent it out to anybody else. So that's true of all items. Whatever you borrow, a lawnmower, a plate, you can use it for yourself. You can't give it to someone else to use. So why does the Braita teach this specifically regarding a Sefer Torah? Sefer Torah is tedichale. Mahu detema nichale leinish de ti'abid misva b'mamone kamashmalan. I have to say it specifically regarding a Sefer Torah also, because I might have thought that a person would be happy that a mitzvah is being done with his money. He might think, listen, I have a Sefer Torah, and I'm going to lend it out to you, and if you then lend it out to someone else, I should be happy because now another mitzvah, more Torah learning is being done with my item. You might have thought that, and we might say that in other cases, but for a Sefer Torah, which is very delicate, no, I don't want you, I trust you that you're going to treat it carefully and not ruin it, but I don't necessarily trust the other person that you're going to give it to. It's great he's doing a mitzvah, but the protection of my property for something so sensitive and special takes priority. Potcho v'koreh bo pishita ve'ela lemaishay le'mineh. So it says, if I borrow your Sefer Torah, I can open up and read from it. Isn't that obvious? What did I borrow it for if not to read it? Sefa is terichaler b'dvar shelo yilmod bo batechila. You're right. That the resha is obvious, but I have to say that to contrast it with the sefa. That says I shouldn't learn something for the first time. If I borrow a Sefer Torah, it's only with the assumption that I'm going to use it to reread, to review my learning, but not to read it for the first time, where I'm going to have to open it, expose it for a long time, which will cause it damage. In the second part of Braita, if you give me a Sefer Torah to safeguard for you as a Shomer Sachar, then as the Braita says, I can open it up and roll it every 12 months. I can open up and read in it. Well, what is it doing with me that says I can read it? I'm just there to safeguard it. I don't have a right to read it. So why does the Braita say that I can open up and read it? And further, another question, Vitu, im bishbilo petacho asur, hamar potcho v'koreh bo. Braita continues and says, if I'm opening it for my own sake, that's prohibited. But you just said that I can open and read it, which sounds like I am allowed to open and read it. And now you say, if I want to read it, then I cannot open it. So it's self-contradictory. Hachika amar im keshu gololo potcho v'koreh bo mutar, im bishvilo petacho asur. This is how you explain all parts of the Braita. I am allowed to open it up and roll it once every 12 months. That's actually a good thing. I'm taking care of it. Now, if while I'm rolling it, I want to read it, that's also permitted. I'm rolling it anyway. Fine. While I'm rolling it, I want to read something and review something. Permitted. But if I am opening it up only for my own sake because, I want to look something up, I want to review something, that's prohibited. I can only read it at the time when I would have to open it up and roll it anyway, because that's for its own sake, not for my sake. Sumchus Omer, Bachadash Sheloshim Yom, B'Yashan Shenem Asar Chodesh, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Echad Zeh ve'Echad Zeh Shenem Asar Chodesh. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Hainu Tanakh Kama. Now, Sumchus made a distinction between a new scroll that you have to roll every 30 days and an old one once every 12 months. And then Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, all new and old, 12 months. But we ask Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who said 12 months, that's the same as Tanakh Kama, who also said 12 months. Ela ema Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov omer, echad zeh ve'echad zeh sheloshim yom. You know what, you have the wrong version of the Braita. The Braita should read that according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, whether it's old and new, it's the same. The same is 30 days. So the Tanakh Kama says, no matter what kind of scroll, 12 months. Sumchus says, new ones 30 days, old ones 12 months. Rabbi ben Yaakov says, all scrolls you should roll once every 30 days. Aval lo yilmod bo b'techila v'lo yikra acher imo. ולמינהו לא יקרא פרשה וישנה ולא יקרא בו פרשה ויתרגם ולא יפתח בו יותר משלושה דפים ולא יקראו בו שלושה בני אדם בכרך אחד השניים קוראים. The Mishnah says that if someone who finds a scroll should not learn in it to begin with, a new thing that he never learned before, because he'll spend too long on it, and he should not read with another person. So the Mishnah says two people should not be reading the scroll that they found together, because they'll be pulling it in both directions. But we have a challenge from a Braita that says, if someone finds a scroll or borrows a scroll, he should not read parasha and read it twice, because reading it twice is going to leave it open and exposed for too long. Also, he should not read it and translate, because then if you're reading like they would do when they read Sefer Torah, they would read it and then recite a translation, but then you're leaving it open for twice the amount of time necessary just to read it by itself. And furthermore, someone who borrows a scroll should not open up more than 3 columns. Then you're stretching it out too much, exposing more of it to the light, to the air. Rather, only open up 1 or 2 columns that you're currently reading. And 3 people should not read 1 section altogether. What you see from this Braita is that 3 people cannot use it at the same time, but 2 people can use it at the same time. That contradicts our Mishnah that says 2 people cannot use a found scroll at the same time. Amar Abaye lakashya kan be'inyan echad kan b'shnei inyanim. Abaye says, no, the difference is if it's talking about one subject. In other words, if you have two people reading the very same paragraph on one subject, they're going to be pulling it back and forth, and that's prohibited. That's the case of the Mishnah. But if they're reading two different sections, two different paragraphs that might just happen to be near each other, but one is more to the right and one's more to the left, maybe they're in different columns, then that's permitted because they're not going to pull it towards each other, since one is near this guy and the other paragraph is near the other person. So then two people are permitted. Three people, however, would be too much. Three people studying even three different subject matters are still going to be opening up the scroll too much and exposing it to danger. Masa kesut menara echad l'shashim yom lemema deniur ma'aleh la v'ha'amar Rabbi Yochanan mi sheyesh lo gardi uman betoch beto yena'er kesuto bechol yom amri bechol yom kashila echad l'shloshim yom ma'alila. The Mishnah said if someone finds a garment, you should take it out once every 30 days. Now we can see from the Mishnah that shaking out a garment is good for it, but we have a problem because Rabbi Yochanan said that if someone has a skilled weaver in his house and the weaver can come and in case something gets damaged, he'll be right there to fix it, then he can shake out the garment even every day if he wants to. He wants to just get rid of the dust in his house and he wants to shake it out every day. That's permitted. From Rabbi Yochanan's statement, it sounds like shaking something out is bad for it, but it might get damaged, and that's why it's only permitted if a weaver is there who can fix it immediately. So, but this contradicts the Mishnah that says shaking something out is good for it. So we're going to have a few answers. The first answer is, if it's done every day, that's harmful to it. Too much every day, shaking it out, it's going to tear, it's going to weaken it. But if once every 30 days, that's good, it's beneficial. You don't want to sit it so it'll rot away. You got to get the bad stuff out of it once every 30 days. A second answer. It depends. If it's one person shaking it out, that's good for it. That's what the Mishnah was talking about. But when Rabbi Yochanan said it's bad for it, that's if two people are shaking it out, they're going to shake it out more vigorously and may cause it to tear. A third answer. The Mishnah was talking about if you're shaking it out by hand, then you'll do it gently and that's good for it. But Rabbi Yochanan was talking about shaking it out with a stick, banging it, like people take their carpets and they hang it out the window and bang it with a stick to get all the dust out. That will cause it harm, so that's only allowed if the weaver is available. Or another answer, the Mishnah was talking about something made out of wool. Shaking it out is good for it, but it's made out of linen. Linen is more delicate, and shaking that out will be bad for it and may need to be fixed. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, since we mentioned one point of advice from Rabbi Yochanan, here's some more practical wisdom from Rabbi Yochanan. Kasade charshin vela kasade poshrin. It's better to drink a cup of witches than to drink lukewarm water, meaning don't drink either of them. Cup of witches, certainly you're not going to want to drink, but warm water, lukewarm water, also is not good for you. But it's only bad for you if it's in a metal vessel. But an earthenware vessel, lukewarm water is fine. And even in a metal vessel, that's only if the water had not been boiled. But if it was boiled and now just cooled off a little bit, that's okay. And it's only bad if you didn't put flavoring in it, but you put some flavor into the water, then that's fine to drink when it's lukewarm. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mi shehiniach lo abiv ma'ot harbe v'oseh labedan, yilbash bigdei fishtan, v'yishtamesh bichlei zichuchit, v'yizkor po'alim v'al yesheb imahen. If someone inherited a lot of money and you want to lose it quick, meaning these are ways to lose money quick, therefore don't do them, you should wear linen garments, use glass vessels, and hire laborers and don't supervise them. We'll explain each one. Yilbash bichle fishtan bechitana rumita, vishtamesh bechle zechuchit bezugita chivarta. When he said that you should wear linen garments if you want to waste money, that's regarding Roman linen, which is very cheap and delicate. I mean, it's expensive to buy, but cheap in quality and delicate, and becomes tattered quickly. And therefore, you're going to spend a lot of money and then just wear it a couple of times, and it's going to be all ruined. So, not worth your money. And expensive glass, white glass, probably the main transparent glass, which is very hard to make, very expensive, and easily breaks. And so, not worthwhile to spend money on these things unless you really want to waste money. Then go for it. V'yiskor po'alim v'al yashibi mahen targuma betore tenafish pesidai. And if you hire laborers and you don't sit with them and supervise them, this is specifically talking about oxen, because oxen, first of all, if you don't supervise your workers, then they're probably not going to be working so hard. But actually, it's even worse with oxen, because they may trample on the produce, then they actually will cause a lot of damage, even more damage than they're worth. So therefore, if you're going to hire workers to work with oxen, make sure you're with them, supervising them, to make sure that they are not causing damage, unless you really want to waste a lot of money. And in that case, go for it. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.